What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. NXT Stand and Deliver 2023 just ended a moment ago. So we're going to run down the card, what happened, all the results, what our thoughts are for all the results, and everything else that we normally do here. I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Stand.
And Callum Wiggins.
And deliver.
You got a yes boy for us today?
No, but I would like to wish both of you a happy fuck Rick Steiner day. It's always a great day.
It's a good way to start that off, right? Yeah.
He is, in fact, the April Fool this year.
In more ways than one. Let's see, we got Brandon in the chat, we got Peter, we got Guy123, we got Josh. What's going on, everybody? Chat it up in that chat while we're here. If you are listening to this after the fact, of course, leave a comment below. Tell us what you're thinking about NXT Stand and Deliver. What are you hyped about for Mania Night 1 happening in a couple hours from now? First things first, before we get into the card and stuff, we got, an earlier pay-per-view again. I know that a lot of people are super happy about that, but I gotta say, one of the things that happened throughout this whole night, or this whole afternoon, I should say, and morning, I'm still carrying over from yesterday, that I think was a real hindrance for this was the crowd was not hyped until the end. And I don't know if maybe that was that they were just a little too tired, like it was too early for them or what, because
Hear me out.
It was like, it started at what time would it have been that it started?
9 a.m.
9 in the morning. So that's asking quite a bit.
And here, listen, showed if they were doing the indies stuff, let's just assume for a second. Emo Fight from GCW didn't end until 5 in the morning, our time. So if anybody's doing the crossover shtick, they're tired. And it's going to take a little bit to wake them up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you get people like us that are obviously we're at home covering these things and all. We're tired, let alone the people that are trying to keep their energy up the entire time. And if anybody went to Supercard last night or SmackDown or anything. So that was something that I thought was a real hindrance. But I'm curious if anybody watching it at home, if they felt the same sort of thing. So definitely let me know, whether it's, the people in live chat right now. What's up, Maverick? I see you were in the chat as well. Or if it's the people after the fact, maybe they watched it afterward. Maybe they like it better. Maybe they, doesn't translate quite the same. I don't know. Peter did a 3-mile walk this morning. Man, I don't know how you have the fucking energy for that.
Hell yeah, dude. Good for you.
That's more than I did, I don't know, the past couple of weeks combined.
I imagine that's more that you've done in the past few years, but,
Nah, I mean, up in New York, I got to walk more than normal. So
that's true.
Not a fan. So as we go along here and we tell you what we have to say and all that, I want to remind everybody to hit the like button on this because that is something that'll help us out quite a bit. And if you're enjoying the podcast, then that's a great way to let us know. Also, double check that you are subscribed to this. Make sure you ring that little notification bell. That way you get to know when we go live for WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2 later on. And keep in mind that there's a little join button that's there. There's a little thanks button. Thanks button's basically the same as what the super chats are for the live chat that we got going on, where it's a little tip jar essentially, but the join button is the same thing as the Patreon. So if you want to help us in that kind of monetary way, then that's one of the best possible ways for you to do that, whether it's the $1 a month tier, or it's the Darkcast, or it's the Pick Your Poison, where we can do whatever it is that you're requesting for the most part. Kind of, a couple little rules here and there, but that's something to keep in mind. So we also want to remind everybody that we have the Dusty Rhodes contest going on right now, where you can win a Funko Pop, as sponsored by Fun.com. So enter the Road to WrestleMania contest while you can. A couple more days for you to get some more entry points in there. Also vote on the Smark Madness tournament to determine the best wrestling family dynasty of all time. And go back and check out our talk about the Supercard of Honor stuff and the Hall of Fame. And that's pretty much all the plugs that I feel like doing right now. We are going to get into Stand and Deliver. We'll talk about other plugs later on. I know it's the highlight of the whole thing is plugs, right? So they decided on the kickoff to announce that one of the matches was moved to the kickoff. And I don't know if that was something that they had planned ahead of time and they wanted to do that thing where, sometimes the different philosophies of like, well, we like the idea of spontaneously having breaking news, But I got a feeling they were just mapping out this and they realized a little bit late into the day, oh crap, you know what? We don't have enough time for everything. So they moved the Schism versus Chase University match to the kickoff. And there was nothing else on the kickoff that I felt like there was anything worth talking about. But if you guys disagree, let me know.
Denise Salcedo looks great in a WWE setting. She fits very naturally. That's about the bulk of what I had to say about the kickoff.
Yeah, there was one part, I'm trying to remember what it was that somebody had said, but I was like, okay, that's somebody's going to clip that and make that into something else. I forget what Greg something or other. He was like, like, you got to love this guy's package or something. I forget how he had said it, but it was just kind of like, that's not quite the right wording there, you know. But Chase University, it's Andre Chase, Duke Hudson, Thea Hale, and Tyler Bate, who looked like he was wearing a diaper and socks. I don't understand that outfit choice. It was not really a great one. Going up against Schism's Joe Gacy, Ava Raine, Jagger Reed, and Rip Fowler. And the biggest talking point going into this was basically, hey, what's Ava Raine going to do? We had mentioned in our predictions that we did not anticipate that she was going to be in the ring all that long. Maybe a minute or two, just kind of get a little spot here and there. And that's basically what happened. She was only in there for a very short time frame. They teased it at first. Thea Hale was super gung-ho about, you know, just diving right into a match. Credit to Thea, man. She always has so much energy. She's always a lot of fun. And Ava Raine tagged out, you know, eventually tags back in. I'm seeing a lot of the same opinions on Twitter and such, and I'm also seeing a lot of defense for it. General consensus seems to be, all right, look, we got to give her a little bit of a break. This is her first televised match, but not all that great. And then I'm seeing a lot of people going like, oh my God, you're too harsh on her. She's got so much criticism just because she's a rock star. I don't think that that's because she's the rock star. I think that it's fair enough to go, she didn't look ready quite yet. It might have been the nerves and just the excitement of the whole thing. She was kind of smiling quite a bit, which I'm sure, you know, hey, you're
sure
out on a pay-per-view and
there, by the way, you know?
Yeah. So it's like there is a certain level of like, all right, you gotta, you know, kind of treat it that way. But I don't think that it's unfair criticism to be like, yeah, she didn't wow in a way that would have been like, oh, this whole time, you know, she's been sitting on this great performance and she finally comes out and she immediately does amazing stuff. There were some sloppy parts to it for a minute and a half or so that she was in the ring, and I'm hoping that this was just kind of the jittery nerves, and the next time that we see her in the ring that we see something better. But if not, then maybe she's been on the shelf as long as she's been not just 100% from the injury. Maybe she actually still hasn't quite figured it out yet. What are you guys thinking about Ava's debut?
I thought everything was perfectly okay up until that wasteland attempt at the end of the match. But I think that it probably was the nerve. She probably isn't fully, you know, ring ready, because I'm sure she has practice matches, but like it's different when you're competing in a fast-paced environment in the go-go. You know, you're on an actual show. I thought it was, I'm not going to say it was great, but I thought it was good to see her finally get in the ring.
She's very sloppy, and she was like having to choreograph a lot of the spots. She'll fit right in. That's basically what the NXT women's division is, bar for a couple of people. It's just, she isn't very good, but most people who work for NXT, the person she was in the ring with is not very good. She was better than Ava, but that's not really saying much. She's
a great character.
I mean, fundamentally, it's like, it wasn't a great first showing, but you know, it can always go up from here. I'm not going to bash it too much. More bash the fact that this match itself was just bad.
I thought it was fine, and you know, I mean, parts of it, of course, were better than other parts, and certain people are going to put on a better show than other people and all. But the real highlight of it for me was the April Fool's joke, where Duke Hudson is teasing that he is going to join Schism just to rip the shirt and be like, nah, I'm chasing you all the way. Oh, that was really well done. I like that a little bit. And that ended up leading to Chase U getting the victory, which I was surprised about. I just assumed naturally, you put out a stipulation like Chase U can get controlled by Schism if Schism wins. The likelihood that that's going to happen is pretty much like a guarantee. And there were some surprising outcomes on tonight. And that was one of them.
I'm unhappy about it because I didn't want to see Schism take over Chase U. But I thought overall the match was fun. I got them on the card. I of course think Grizzled Young Vets are better than they've been presented within the Schism. But it was a really fun showing, and Chase U, from what was a pretty dead crowd for the most part of the show, the Chase U stuff did get reaction. So, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it was just a flat average match, and the only thing that got a pop in the entire thing was G-Cod Hudson ripping a shirt. And this was kind of a real, I guess, showcase to me that NXT is a baby show for babies.
You didn't know that ahead of time?
I knew it, but this was like the big encapsulation of that entire fact that, because realistically, the crowd are only there to see, like, well, as we'll talk about in the next one, they're there for meme moments and just like, shouting and talking to the camera and all that stuff. Whereas, I kind of want to watch wrestling. That's kind of what I want to do. I want to watch wrestling, not I don't even know how to class this as sports entertainment. It's high school theater.
We are still not back in the black and gold days, that's for sure. But there are some positives that are in that more direction rather than the full-blown NXT 2.0 that we were getting before. But Chase U is definitely one of the ones that I enjoy a lot more than a lot of these other kind of hokey gimmicks and all. And we're going to talk about some flat stuff later on with some other matches and all. But while the kickoff was still going on, they started to do some of the entrances for the NXT Women's Championship ladder match. They introduced Zoey Stark. They had Indi Hartwell come out. They had Gigi Dolin come out. And then they transitioned to the start of the show and like a 3-minute or so introductory video package, and come back and it's Tiffany Stratton and Lyra Valkyria and Roxanne Perez. I was surprised as this opened the show to begin with, but I guess just the way that they were planning it out. Some of that makes sense, some of it doesn't. I mean, this had some good moments in it. There were, in particular, some spots to, I forget if it was you, Rob, or if it was somebody else. I think it was you, that you were like, Tiffany, I'm determined to break my back in this match, Stratton.
Sure was. Because, I mean, obviously when Indi spinebusted her on the ladder, that wasn't on Tiffany, but when she did what was essentially a swanton after being pushed off the ladder by Indi, it just seemed like there was just so much impact. Maybe I'm a little squeamish after what happened to poor Dante last night, but I was just like, God, please be careful, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, that wasn't on her either. That was on the 3 women that have clearly gone to the Miz school of catching people on dives. Because they just decided to let her fall right in between them and go right onto the mat.
It wouldn't be the biggest whiff of the night, though.
No, not the biggest one altogether, but it could have been the most. It could have been the most devastating one if Tiffany hadn't landed as well as she did land. I think she actually did quite well to just land as flat as she possibly could to absorb as much of the impact. Because realistically, if she had gotten injured, no one to blame other than the 3 women that should have easily caught her.
And there were some sloppy parts here and there, of course. That's kind of par for the course of what we were expecting when it came to this match, because certain people in this match, they really do know what they're doing, but even still, they're just kind of in that higher range of NXT. So it's not like they've been a veteran for 20 years and they are like, you're putting in a Mickie James or something. But they had some moments here and there for each person. And what was interesting to me was this semi-dead crowd that would wake up for a moment here and there really had no interest in Lyra Valkyria. She was like 90% up the ladder, and I didn't hear a peep. Everybody was just sort of like, there's no chance she's winning. Okay, we're just waiting.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is I don't think it's a issue with Lyra. I think it's Well, we kind of all crossed her off our list collectively of she just got there. They're not going to give her the win.
Yeah, and they actually had the same sort of reaction to Indi. And lo and behold, of course, we'll get to the end of the match, but they had a moment here that I thought was funny where it's always like hilarious to me when people in ladder match set things up and you can very clearly just see that all they're doing is setting something up. And there was a situation where Zoey Stark she was trying to set up the ladder in the typical thing that we've seen a million times at this point, where a ladder is close enough to the turnbuckles that you could put another ladder in there horizontally and then hook that onto the middle rope. And the ladder wasn't close enough, so she had to just bring the ladder closer to be able to hook that in that way, and then move on and completely ignore it because she's just there to set that up for somebody else, which ended up being Gigi Dolin taking the back bump with some interference from Jay-Z's Jane. So we got Jane in there just to do her quick little spot, which it's fine enough. I mean, it wasn't all that impactful. It wasn't that great, but it did its job. And the only other thing I had to say was actually the finish. So if you guys have any other moments you want to pinpoint?
I mean, I think for the most part, it wasn't like the car crash that I thought it was going to be in places. I think for the most part, it was well choreographed. So so thumbs up on that front because a lot of them aren't very experienced with ladder matches, so they managed to do a good job for the most part.
JC Jane's back, but I'm venturing to guess that neither one of you knew she was out for an extended period of time. So there's that.
I mean, she had the sling and everything.
I'm glad she's back. I thought for a minute there, I was just like, you're a woman on the roster. Why don't you just take the belt down and go, fuck you all, I'm the champion.
Yeah, she was very clearly just able to grab it right there. Nobody was interfering or anything. But this all ends with Indi Hartwell not quite being able to climb up. She's just too beaten down. So who pops up right underneath her in a very memeable screenshot where he gives her a thumbs up right to her crotch? Dexter Lumis, who helps bring her up. And Indi Hartwell is the new NXT Women's Champion. Callum called it.
Callum Wiggins on realizing that this was a possibility. And listen, it's more what I said last night during the Hall of Fame coverage. I like happy endings. I'm sure she won't be champion forever. Let her have it.
I thought this was pretty befitting, really, because as has been the case in most of her career, she only means something when she's being propped up by Dexter Lumis.
The only thing I want to add on to that is, and I've shared this screenshot on Twitter and with you guys, Roxanne Perez just said fuck selling, and I'm just gonna lovingly watch Indi win the title that I was so determined to fight for.
Yeah, you're way too happy to lose that belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's different from there's that whole thing about the Sasha Banks after her match with Bianca and smiling afterwards, but it's like, that's slightly different. It's like a big moment. And this one, it's a case of, well, it's not like you've demonstrated on TV that you're like really close friends with Indi or something like that. It's like, okay, you've probably tagged a couple of times, but that's about it, really.
You could tell this was a moment of because someone later was completely overjoyed to see Indi holding the belt. Mm-hmm. And you can just tell this is very yay, you got it, you did it, look at you kind of moment for the roster.
It just doesn't quite translate the same as something like the Sasha Banks thing, because Banks had already been a champion multiple times. She had already been to the mountaintop and all. And Roxanne
just making history. It wasn't
main event of WrestleMania type. And this was Roxanne just is 21 and she just had this title and all, and she's just like, yay, I'm happy you won.
Yeah, I mean, and also they're telling this whole story of the fact that she was getting involved in this ladder match after being seemingly out of it in order to overcome her anxiety and all the troubles of that, and then she lost, and so she's so happy that she still has anxiety.
Well, no, you see, I tweeted, she's realized now that the only thing that matters in life is true love, and she's just happy to see Index happy and living their best lives.
Or maybe it's kind of like that whole situation that people get into where it's like they look in retrospect and they're like, you know what? I'm glad I got into that car accident because I really needed a new car and this is all going to work out in the end. She's like, I'm not feeling that pressure anymore now that I'm not champion. Yay. Thank you for taking the belt off of me. And now I don't have the pressure on my shoulders.
It was funny because literally the other 4 women were selling on the mat, on the ringside mat. And Roxanne's just like, yeah, you go, Indi. Like,
Yeah. You're giving her the yeah from No Holds Barred. Just, yeah.
And I know we're obviously like a lot of saying these bits in jest, but just and I know I always say this sort of thing, and people think that maybe I take it a bit too far, and there's that argument. But I do think that she's the worst wrestler in this match. Indi Hartwell was. Well, not like just this match particularly, but just as an overall package, she's the least effective wrestler out of all of them, and she's the one who's the champion. I just think that, I'm all for giving certain people like a gold watch for just being like long service or that kind of thing. And I know there is a portion of the NXT roster that's super behind it, but I do just fundamentally think that is due to the relationship with Loomis, which is a comedy act. And so, make her a tag team champion, create a mixed tag team title and have them hold it, and that's totally fine. But she shouldn't be the women's champion. It's just a bit of a, again, I don't know if the title has like a huge wave of credibility, but she's not up to holding that title.
I do anticipate that she is dropping that relatively soon. Not like, NXT this week or anything, but
yeah, I'd say JC Jane probably next up.
I could see JC. I could see them still giving it to Tiffany. I could still see them giving it to Zoey. There's a couple different options, but I think that maybe as quickly as Battleground, we could see a new champion.
Can we talk about that as well?
NXT Battleground?
Yeah, because it's going head to head with Double or Nothing.
Yeah,
we're very aware. It fried my brain.
Yeah, we both did the whole like, God damn it, kind of.
I mean, yeah, it's like that everyone knows Double or Nothing's happening. Double or Nothing was announced like 2 or 3 weeks ago to be going on that day, and so so this is a deliberate attempt to take it on because you don't have to host it. You don't have to host it on that day.
Yeah, but you're not taking it on. Let's be real for 5 seconds. Like, if they were going to put Backlash on at this time, it'd be like, oh, wow, this is crazy competition. But, like, it just feels like they were determined to run, okay, well, we got to do the Sunday because we're in Saudi on the Saturday.
Yeah, they really like doing an NXT show on the same week as the Saudi shows. Or, like, very close to it, at the very least. But according to HBK, the reason that they're doing that is because it's Memorial Day weekend. But I still just kind of go like, you couldn't have figured out another time, because not as many people are going to be watching that show. They're going to be watching Double or Nothing.
But I'm not gonna say anything too negatively about WWE here because look at this weekend. We're just learning that like people don't care. They're just gonna put their content where they want to put their content, and they're gonna let people choose.
Yeah, I mean, when they start looking at the numbers, they're going to care when they go, oh man, we didn't have that many people watching this one compared to what we thought. And it's like, yeah, because you got competition. That's what happens.
I just wish they were running the Saturday, that Saudi was on the Sunday, just so that like, all right, if you're going to do a full day of wrestling, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like, head to head, I don't even know what that looks like because this is different than head to head with the Ring of Honor show like they did in December. This is Double or Nothing is like AEW's WrestleMania.
Look at it this way. I mean, obviously not everything is the Super Bowl, but do you ever see anything important running opposite of the Super Bowl? No.
Almost never.
Everybody runs reruns of shows. They run a movie marathon because they're like, oh, look, people are watching the Super Bowl, even if you don't care. So
that's the only thing. That's like the only reason they could be putting this on because they know that it's going to be absolutely murdered by Double or Nothing in terms of people tuning in and watching it because it's not as important. So the only reason they can rationalize doing it, I don't buy this whole Memorial Day weekend thing because it's been firmly established in AEW's history that Double or Nothing happens on Memorial Day weekend. That's what they do. So they know well in advance that that's what's going to happen. So the only reason they do it is if they're the hope that they can sneak a couple of thousand people away from that show instead. It's like I'd be surprised if they snuck a couple of hundred off of that show, if I'm totally honest.
Well, I mean, the people that are only watching NXT wouldn't have been watching the AEW show anyway. And the people that are only watching AEW wouldn't be watching NXT anyway. And then when you force people like me to pick between the two, I'm going to have both running on my screen, but I'm going to be paying way more attention to AEW because it's just a bigger pay-per-view. So,
yeah,
you know, the push comes to shove, somebody gets pushed down. That's how it works. I see George in the chat here saying Shawn Michaels seems determined to give a lot of talent on the bubble a second chance, Indi winning the belt, Wesley, etc. Guy 123 is asking if we had seen Impact versus New Japan. Did you guys check any of that?
I watched it.
I haven't watched it yet. I've got some time off this week, so I'm gonna try and binge a couple of things from GCW that and the other like WrestleMania weekend shows. So I'll probably try and watch the multiverse thing. I'm gonna try and watch Bloodsport as well because I've seen clips of the Ibushi Speedball Mike Bailey match. So
those are the two I watched. I think you'll enjoy them. Multiverse United was a very good show. I really enjoyed Speedball and Tanahashi. As far as Bloodsport, I really enjoyed Alex Coughlin and Moxley. I think Coughlin should get signed after watching that.
I didn't see a single bit of it. I don't plan on it, just to be honest. But hey, if we're talking about things that fell flat, at least from my perspective, let's go on to the NXT Tag Team Championship Triple Threat match because we had Gallus, the Creed Brothers, and Tony D'Angelo and the Channing Stacks Lorenzo, which got some talented people in here. And you wouldn't have known that because this match was boring. And the only takeaways from the entire match were Brutus didn't come remotely close to hitting his Cannonball Doomsday Device thing. You're talking the whiff for Tiffany Stratton. He was completely missing them.
Tiffany didn't whiff. Tiffany just...
The catch,
just,
I mean.
Yeah,
but they didn't catch her. And it was Brutus.
Brutus just...
He looked like he closed his eyes and went, there's somewhere in this vicinity. And of course, Vic tried to make up for it. I don't know if he got all of it. Like, Vic, he didn't get any of it. Yeah. That was pretty bad. And he's done that so much better in the past.
So, because, it wasn't just a normal Doomsday either. It was a guy on top of guy on top of guy. And it's just like, it just looked like it was going to be scary. And then he whiffed. And I feel bad for him because it was his big spot of the match.
It was the big spot of the match outside of the return of Joe Coffey, which the crowd couldn't have given a shit about.
I genuinely question how many people knew who that guy was.
Yeah,
that's
the issue.
How many people actually knew who Joe Coffey was?
Because realistically, obviously somebody like me, I've written up a million articles about people where it'll be like, let me specifically talk about Saxon Huxley. And people are like, who the hell is this guy from NXT UK and all? Joe Coffey was one of those B+ type guys in NXT UK, but not many people. There are a lot of people that don't know who people are on the main roster. And then on NXT, some of the big important people in NXT UK on top of that, very few people in the grand scheme understand that. And when you take that much time off and you're pretty generic enough looking, it's not like a guy like Omos popped up and it's like, okay, yeah, the 9-foot tall dude pops up and you understand who he is. He just looked like a guy in a hoodie. And the amount of people that probably would have recognized him already is low. And you then have to figure the only people who recognize him are the ones that could care. And not everybody's going to care to begin with about that either. And then just the action that they did, it wasn't anything all that exciting. He wasn't running in and hitting somebody with a chair or anything. He just sort of, hey, I'm here also. Let me kind of hold you back for a moment. And this whole thing just, the beginning, the middle, and the end, I thought that this was a major thumbs down, this whole segment.
Yeah, incredibly just dull, flat. The crowd just didn't care about anything involved with this. And yeah, there's a fuck finish at the end of it. So really, there's not much to take away from this that's anywhere positive. Again, it's like the downfall of the NXT tag team division where we always used to talk about how the tag team match was usually one of, if not the match of the night, always on takeovers. And yeah, this was the furthest thing from it. Shortest match on the card as well. So
Thankfully.
I miss the Undisputed Era. That's all I have to say.
Undisputed Era, Alpha Academy, or what were they called again? They weren't Alpha
American
Academy
Alpha.
then. American Alpha. Yeah, DIY, of course.
Revival.
Yeah.
I miss it all.
Authors of Pain had some great stuff. Viking Raiders, Three Profits, all these great tag teams that we've had in the past, and then and yeah, even like Breezango and everything.
Imperium, yeah.
And these three, they've got talent to them. You know, we've talked a million times before about the Creed brothers being great. We were all leaning towards hoping that Tony D'Angelo and Stax would win this. Gallus is not a bunch of schlubs, but you wouldn't have known that watching this match because this segment was just a dud.
I'd say one of them is. Yeah.
Might it be the one that just came back? Like, maybe.
So that didn't help the crowd whatsoever. They were not quite feeling this pay-per-view, and it was starting to seem like they were not going to wake up at all. Following this, though, ended up being the North American Championship Fatal 5-Way, Wesley, Axiom, Dragon Lee, Ilja Dragunov, and JD McDonagh. And finally, when you're starting to get all the flips and everything, and particularly that DDT spot from Axiom toward the end, finally people were paying attention and actually excited to see something. I didn't like Dragon Lee's.
What woke them up was their double dose of coffee in the tag team match.
Could be that. I didn't like Dragon Lee's entrance. I don't know what went wrong there, but at least on my screen, I don't know if it's just my Peacock feed.
On mine as well.
Okay, so it was definitely their feed then. It seemed like they put like the Axiom filter on, and the program might have crashed or something, because he was just sort of frozen halfway off the screen, and that's a shame because Dragon Lee was easily my biggest standout from this match. He looked like he fit perfectly. He didn't have any like jitters or anything. He already looks like he's main roster worthy for me. He came out cool. Axiom did some good stuff. Everybody held their own. This ended up actually being a pretty good match, and it ended up with Wesley getting the win. For anybody that's wondering about pure results.
Fantastic match. A lot of fun. I wish Dragunov won.
He actually took the pinfall.
The golden ratio is one of the coolest finishers. Axiom's a lot of fun. I wish he had just a hair more personality. But God, the moves were so cool. And I think that's all you needed here. So I guess they delivered. No pun intended.
Yeah, I thought that this match was all action, and that's exactly what this card needed after some just like nothing happening matches beforehand. They really woke up the crowd, and they pulled out some really great material. I thought, for me, Dragunov and Axiom were the two standouts in this match. I thought they were both exceptional, as they typically are. Whenever you put them against anybody, they're always going to deliver. I did enjoy people, also not loads of people, but seeing a couple of people on Twitter talking about, Elias and the Miz are on the main roster, and these guys are fighting in NXT. It's like these all five of these guys run rings over many people on the main roster, and I don't see why they have to be down in the lower reaches. But yeah, I thought the match was great. I'm surprised that they decided to keep the title on Wes, but maybe they have something planned in more of a one-on-one feud and moving away from this I'll take on all comers gimmick.
I do think that this is kind of the end of that story, because he's proven himself now that he can beat four people that are all worthy enough of singles championship matches, and maybe they have heel in mind that they want to transition over to. I don't really know necessarily off the top of my head, but
this better not be Jay White.
I could see.
No.
Shut
He's
the
not
fuck
going
up,
to NXT.
Tony.
You,
Shut up.
you
No.
didn't let me finish. I was going to say I could see them putting him on the main roster and not doing the NXT thing.
Yeah, good.
Good point.
Relax. Oh my god.
I'm just saying that.
No,
that's not what they're planning on doing.
That's if he, of course, signs with them. I could see them just going, "Hey, look, you part of the deal is that you get the AJ Styles treatment."
Yeah, I'd imagine so. But yeah, I don't know. There's not anyone like immediately springs to mind that Wesley would lose the title to at the moment. Maybe one of these guys, if they just go on a one-on-one thing.
It would have been
I mean,
Dijak if they didn't already do that to me. But they pretty quickly just went, never mind about Dijak, which is like, damn it, man. Like,
I mean, Joe
gotta be
Coffey's back
something.
now. So if they wanted to do that with Joe Coffey.
Based off of that reaction, I don't want that to be the case.
No, I don't either. But they're still heavily harping on that Dragunov and McDonagh aren't finished either. So maybe that will be something that leads into it.
And it very easily could just be one of those scenarios where they end up having like a triple threat between those three, and then McDonagh wins or something. Like, just
Maybe
because Wesley's beaten these guys doesn't mean that that's over either.
Maybe he gets a one-on-one with Dragon Lee, and it's just he can't beat him one-on-one.
Yeah, could be that. I'd be fine with that. Dragon Lee looked great. Frankie agrees in the chat. I just read the exact same comment. Dragon Lee looked great, so that's funny. Brandon say this match was so good. I want Axiom to get pushed so bad. Josh saying I love the North American title match. Dragunov is beast. So yeah, this was definitely head towards some better action, and then they followed it up with, I think, my favorite match of the entire night, the unsanctioned match between Grayson Waller and Johnny Gargano. Where,
do you remember Johnny Wrestling? He came back.
Johnny Wrestling was wrestling, and Johnny
and not Podform.
Johnny knows what he's doing. Of course, he's had these unsanctioned matches before. Grayson Waller holding himself up really well. I like Johnny's ring gear. I thought that in particular was funny. Everybody's noticing about Vic Joseph's candy at the desk.
Yeah, it's Skittles and Starburst, and I'm just like, you know what? That is right. That is the candy that you go for. If you're gonna go for some fruity candy, it's Skittles and it's Starburst, and good for Vic Joseph. And Booker T took a bump that I know Cal would pop for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best part of the whole thing, because then his headset went off.
Yeah.
I like Vic is like, are you okay, Booker? And Booker still hasn't had it connected yet. You can just hear him in the background go, no, I'm not okay. Yeah, the match was good. We had some good moments here from like the coast to coast with the trash can on Gargano's head. I like that Candice got involved and started wailing away on Waller. Walling away on Waller. Waller's back's going to be bruised as all hell. It already started to welt up and get all bloody.
That was gnarly,
nice.
Dude.
Yeah, I like that. That was a good visual. Good on him for taking that punishment.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it ends up being Johnny Gargano getting the victory by submission. And Dexter and Indi coming out to celebrate with Johnny and Candice. No Austin Theory, but that makes sense. And the way celebrating. And that's who you were talking about earlier, of how excited Candice was to be like, Indi, you got the title.
Oh my God. Candice was so happy. And it's really nice to see. I thought for 5 seconds we were going to get Ciampa. And it's like, Ciampa's back. Cool.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
But no, good ending for the way.
Depending on
got a proper ending, good ending for them.
Depending on his status for his injury, I could see Ciampa being one of those Raw after Mania returns.
Good. I mean, I want this Johnny on Raw. And I know Raw's a different beast. I understand that. But I like seeing a motivated wrestler who does good things. Like, on Raw, he just isn't motivated. Maybe what we need to do is kind of keep him away from the Loomis stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
good match.
I thought this match was very good, and it's good to see Johnny back in a kind of somewhat meaningful 1-1 match. And yeah, even though it was like very weapons based, I think they utilized that very well. I'm over crowd chanting for "We Want Tables." It just pisses me off at this point, and I want that to be. That was like the first chant that they kind of put out in this match, and I think you guys aren't cheering for anything, and yet you still want tables. Fuck off.
What is that? Like, all of a sudden, it's just like, we demand tables on every event that we see. Why is that?
It's just the thing that they find the coolest. I think it's all just like ingrained in their heads after, how it's not like everyone just would say the word "what" in front of a promo they don't enjoy, but because they enjoyed it when Austin did it, they just enjoyed it when the Dudleys did it, and they're just always trying to recapture anything that got over during the Attitude Era. But I think that this was like well put together. Johnny getting the win was the right way to do it. The fact that he just beat the shit out of Waller towards the end and then just put on the Gargano escape and made him tap out was a great way to finish it off. So big thumbs up. I'd like to see Grayson Waller on the main roster. I think he's built for the main roster. more than he is for NXT.
Yeah, I think he's ready. I think he's kind of proven that here and there, but in particular this match, I was just like, all right, he's got it. Like he's at a point now where if he were to win the championship, like, feud with Carmelo Hayes, I'll just spoil it. I don't think that would really help him. I think that he's got to learn from the main roster at this point. So we had a little backstage segment with Tony D'Angelo and Stax and Pretty Deadly, who didn't really do much on this show, but that was also kind of expected because what are they going to really do? They're not quite the hosts in any meaningful way. I still think the Miz is going to do a little bit more than what this is, but I don't really know exactly what. But that's going to lead to a tag team match that's happening on NXT this week. Dijak is against Odyssey Jones. I don't remember what else they announced, but it wasn't anything all that crazy.
It's not like it was just those two.
Yeah. Okay. So that was transitioning over to the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship match. Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn capturing the titles over Fallon Henley and Kiana James. One of the noteworthy moments of this match that didn't have too much for me to actually talk about was very early on. Fallon Henley is in the match. She's tagged in. She's the official person for that team. And Booker makes a point that says, what we know about Fallon Henley is that she is a businesswoman. She takes care of business. She does all the paperwork. And it's like, Booker.
I was going to let it go, but you brought it up. So let's talk about it.
The thing we know about Fallon Henley is that she is not Fallon Henley. That's Kiana James.
Because I don't think that's a Booker issue. I think that's even with all the TV time, characters just aren't memorable.
But it should be a thing that Booker should know. He's calling those shows.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that.
Well, I think it's a defensive. Like, put it this way: if Jim Ross had done that, people would be jumping down his throat right now.
Oh, they should, because it's like, shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the fact is, Booker T doesn't care. He's just there making money, and on his shows. Like, he has not cared a single bit about anybody who's on that roster. You could, as soon as that show ends and he hasn't got a piece of paper in front of him, he wouldn't know who half the people on the roster is. Oh, so it's like, that's just.
He knows that like, Tiffany Stratton is a hottie biscotti. Okay, that's what he comes to work for.
But yeah,
he knows who Vic is. He says the word Vic constantly. Caroline was pointing that at them. She's like, she really likes saying Vic's name, right?
Oh yeah, Vic. Let
me tell you something, Vic. You listening, Vic? But yeah, I was like, God damn, Booker. Like, it's just one of those things where you phrase it slightly differently, and you're not going to be under fire for that. But the one thing we know about Fallon Henley is, and then it explains all these things about Kiana James. Like, shit. And it's not even like Kiana James is in the ring and he's just like, I slipped up and I said the wrong name or something. No, you got them mixed up. Okay, fine. But nothing happened here up until the very end. And that is when this giant purple purse, I don't know what was supposed to be inside of it, but clearly there was supposed to be some kind of like loaded facet to it. Kiana wanted Brooks Jensen to hand it to her so that way she could use it to win. She specifically said, I need it to win. And Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley sat there saying, no, don't do it. So he doesn't. And then Fyre and Dawn capitalized. They pinned Kiana James, new tag team champions. Kiana James didn't seem as pissed as you would assume that she would be. But nothing happening with the Sebastian thing. Nothing happening with Zach. And this is just going straight to the whole thing that we were talking about. We expected the new tag team champions to happen, and there we go. It happened. Peter saying Big Show's guns in the bag.
I don't know here, because I enjoy the fact that they have milked this story for all that it's worth, but there's so much here where I would say, first of all, Kiana should be pissed. Second of all, Fallon's yelling at Briggs, or not Briggs, I always fuck it up, at Brooks, not to give her the purse. Don't do it. All right, then, Fallon, get in the ring and keep your titles.
Mm-hmm.
Why you just letting her eat the pinfall? I guess you can make the argument, well, they don't like each other, but like it wasn't even like that. They were just more concerned about do the right thing, and I hate that story where like suddenly good must prevail over all. Like no, don't you dare do that thing. It's like good guys cheat all the time. You know? That's just my gripe here. But obviously we were getting what we got. And yeah, the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions are on a new team, and they probably have like 2 teams as is. So may they have a long and prosperous reign.
I have no idea who could beat these 2 for the titles. And I don't think that WWE does either, for that matter. I mean, first off, we know that they don't care. The women's tag team titles on both the main roster and NXT have been easily the most overlooked and poorly booked championships, but there just aren't any options, really. So they got to form another tag team. They got to do something like that, but it's probably not happening for a while.
Yeah, I thought this whole match was bad, and like the fact that they had to work around this whole like can they coexist angle again, which is like overplayed, and yeah, doing that, the fact that they weren't willing to give over the handbag or purse or whatever you want to call it, and just like the fact that Fallon and Josh Briggs were just like more than willing to cede the tag titles if it meant that, you know, Jensen's honor was upheld by the fact that he didn't allow Kiana to cheat to win. And I mean, if that's worth it more to them, that's fine. And they seem to still be like, there seems to be no real closure at the end about what that meant. They all seem to still be, you know, aligned together, or at least like in the same shot together. So I don't think that we're going to see any progress until next week, and whatever that progress be, I don't really care. And yeah, we got new tag team champions that won't mean anything because they, as you guys have noted, they clearly don't have anybody that can challenge them for the titles just yet. So hey ho.
Yeah, that ended up being kind of a downer, and then we switched over to the main event of the night, NXT Championship match between Bron Breakker and Carmelo Hayes, which had a crowd that was pretty firmly in the camp of Hayes for the entirety of this match. Breakker had some supporters here and there, but you know, when you get to the boo, yeah, and the boo is for Bron Breakker, and people are chanting things like that was 3 when Hayes is going for a pinfall and ends being a 2 count. They decided to go with the full still heel turn thing with Carmelo Hayes here. Trek Williams got involved at some point. He gets thrown out from ringside. A little bit later on, referee takes a bump with a spear. Hayes is tapping out. Referee does not see it because he's, you know, out of commission. And Trek is able to come in and hit Breakker in the back with the title belt, which leads to a 2 count. That was the one that was 3. But Melo's still able to capitalize with a leg drop from the top rope, win the title. And in, I guess, Roxanne Perez type mode of I'm happy to see you win the title, Breakker, despite the fact that he very clearly has every reason to be upset because there were 2 things to be cheated on, hands the belt to Hayes, gives him a hand raise and everything, and is happy for losing the belt. And I don't quite understand that when you have the person cheating to win, but hey, look, I mean, they very clearly from the start have been telling a story here of shut up, this is we're looking behind the scenes for some of this, and you guys know that these are the top 2 guys, and just ignore it for a moment.
I don't want to, because Melo tapped out. Melo tapped out. Be a little upset. Fuck, even if you're going to the main roster, be a little upset. Act like you lost.
Yeah, because you did. You lost the championship.
Yeah, well, it's not even about that. It's like, it's not a case that he lost. It's because the guy cheated to beat him, and he had the match won. He forced Carmelo to tap out, and then the only reason he didn't lose because the referee was out at that point in time.
It's a threefold thing. Williams shouldn't have been involved to get thrown out. He got him to tap, and then he got hit with the belt. So it's like there's 3 reasons to be upset about that, but. Now instead it's like, oh, here you go. Respect, man. Thanks for giving me a good match and beating me straight up. No, you didn't.
Yeah, if you got beaten by the better man, then that's a totally fine ending. It's like it's a completely clean win, and he gets the victory, and it's just like, okay, the better man won on the night. That's a totally fine way to end the show. It's like, okay, passing the torch. Good on you, man. I'll like, I'll see you down the road, that kind of thing, whether he's going up to the main roster or whether it's just like, okay, I'll step back a little bit, let you have that, and then I'll be back maybe for a rematch later on or whatever. But to be absolutely screwed out of your championship and then be totally okay with it and still have that ending is just, that's just bullshit. And it's just a way of them going, oh, we knew that Carmelo was going to get cheered, but we're trying to be super protective of Bron on the way out, whether he's going up to the main roster or not. We want to make sure that it was very obvious to everyone that he should have won the match, but he's going to still be but we don't want you to boo him by having him like be petulant about it or beat up Carmelo afterwards, which is what he should be doing because he got screwed out of the championship. Just go, no, we want him to be a babyface when he goes up to the main roster, so we can't do that. So we still have the respectful thing at the end. So yeah, it doesn't make sense logically, but like for the actual, in terms of like reading the room and what was supposed to happen in that regards, then I guess it was probably the best thing for them to do.
Yay, Carmelo Hayes, he's champion. If I think they can build and revamp NXT around him, but we'll see. How long until Trick Williams turns?
Not for a little bit, I would assume.
I think it won't be until after Carmelo loses the title to whoever he loses it to.
Yeah, I could see that being the feud that they do to be like the end feud for Hayes before Hayes goes up to the main roster. That little transitional feud, Yeah,
I think they could tell the story of Trick gets too comfortable about being the hype man for the champion, and he gets super into it, and Carmelo's starting to get a little bit like, a bit it's causing a bit of a distraction because he's like really into this high living, and then when he loses the title, Trick's world starts to fall apart around him, and he just gets pissed at Carmelo for losing the title because so I think that's the direction they should probably go. But for now, it'll be good to see Carmelo on top of it. It'll be nice to see a bit of a change of pace in terms of both match quality and the way feuds can go on, because Carmelo's a bit more of like, it's got more charisma and can wrestle a different style, and I think he's more of a ability to mold his style around his opponents. So it'd be good to see some fresh matchups for the title.
Anybody that stands out to you guys for the next champion after Hayes? Like immediate reaction?
No. No one really. There's not really anyone that they've built up enough at the moment that I think is an obvious choice. Yeah, realistically, I really don't think there's anyone they've built up well enough.
Right now, I don't think that there is anybody that stands out to where it would be like, okay, well, maybe he'll have this feud, that feud, and then lose it to that person. But there's a part of me, for some reason, that thinks maybe Josh Briggs. I don't know why. Is maybe they split that tag team up. Maybe he gets up to that point by that point. Maybe if Hayes turns babyface, we're looking at somebody like a Charlie Dempsey. Maybe we're looking at... there's a couple people maybe, but there also could just be signing new people too. That's another thing. You never know who's going to go down to the main roster, or from the main roster down to NXT. You never know who's going to be signed. Could be a Dragon Lee if they end up keeping him around there long enough and not moving him up to the main roster. I don't think it's going to be Grayson Waller. I don't think it's going to be Bron Breakker winning the title back. I don't anticipate it being somebody like lower on the card, like a Malik Blade or Scripps or Hank Walker or something. But I don't know. I mean, at least for now, I think that their game plan is basically we anointed Carmelo Hayes and he's going to be champion for probably a year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to put a gun to my head, I would say let's wait a year and then Charlie Dempsey can win it while William Regal's by his side.
I could see that happening for sure. Maybe stand and deliver next year. I don't know. We'll be talking about that whenever it does happen, of course.
As long as it's not Double Kato, I'm fine.
I don't think it's going to be Double Kato.
I know, big. Stranger things have happened. I didn't think Omos was going to fight Brock Lesnar this weekend, but here we are.
That's true.
True.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, I just want to say Ava Raine reacted to her debut. She said on April 1st, 2012, which I believe was the date of Roxanne 01, at 10 years old, I decided I wanted to be a WWE superstar when I grew up. On April 1st, 2023, at 21, I debuted on WrestleMania weekend. For 10-year-old me, this is a win. I just want to point out there, she's still only 21 years old. And even though it feels like she's been in developmental forever, she's got a long way to go. So hopefully it starts to click.
Yeah, it might just take a little while longer, but also I think it's fair enough to say the both different ways. She's got time, so it's not the end of the world. But also, don't act like she is putting on the same caliber as some people that actually are. You know, like, be truthful, be honest, and be patient. It's not the end of the world for it. Just the same as when it comes to this. I mean, this wasn't the best pay-per-view, but it wasn't the worst. And we still got 2 more pay-per-views going from WWE. We got the first night of WrestleMania coming up in a couple hours from now. So, it's, currently 4:45. And that's going to start at 6. Well, it's going to start at 8. Let's be honest. They're not going to put a thing on the pre-show. And we will be back with the post-show immediately following that to talk about, hopefully, a fantastic night 1 of WrestleMania. Hopefully not one of those like, oh my God, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Oh my God, I'm so upset. I don't know if Charlotte Flair is going to be upset or not because she doesn't seem like she's all that happy about potentially not being in the main event. Maybe we've got some positives that we didn't even see happening. Maybe some surprises along the way. I don't know. We'll be back for that, though, of course, and we will continue on with anything else that we need to talk about in the meantime if anything happens. But with Stand and Deliver, that is the full breakdown. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Make sure that you are clicking around and checking all the different things that you should check on AnthonyMango.com, including my personal Facebook and Twitter accounts, and the links that you can find from Smark Out Moment, and for FanboysAnonymous.com, all the things on the Blue brand for the geek culture spectrum, like the YouTube, the Facebook, the Twitter, and so on and so forth. Shout out to my blueprint project of The Batman, a Nighttime Story, 100 records from the Wayne Foundation archives for anybody that's a Batman fan and wants to check out what the blueprint project is all about over there on fanboysanonymous.com. I already mentioned the Dusty Rhodes contest that's happening right now and the Smark Madness tournament and the Smark and Play stuff. So if you want to pick up some merchandise, go to TeePublic or Redbubble for either Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, or a Mango Tees. Head up to Patreon, toss a little spare change our way to keep the lights on here, and stay tuned to what we got coming up. Make sure that you're not just following what I have and my accounts and all, but you're following Rob and Callum too.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. You should be checking out Fightful all weekend. John Ross Sapp will, of course, have so much WrestleMania and even non-WWE information this weekend. I was on the Post SmackDown podcast last night with Alex Cardoza. Please go back and check that out. I'm here all weekend, so it's WrestleMania. Let's just enjoy it. And I thank you for all the support. And here's Callum.
You can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. The power rankings went out earlier today over on smarkamoment.com. So check that out. That's the final one of the 2022-2023 season. So you can see the final top 10 and how the final league table all panned out. So next week will be based on WrestleMania, and the results of that will determine who's in the top of the power rankings heading into the 2023-2024 season. Speaking of which, the Fantasy League is also coming to a wrap for this year, and that'll be based on the WrestleMania, the show today, and obviously the Stand and Deliver show we just watched, and both night 1 and night 2 WrestleMania will all count towards the final standings. They're all worth double points, as is tradition for the WrestleMania stuff. And yeah, we'll see who ends up coming up on top.
Alrighty, everybody, that's it for NXT Stand and Deliver 2023 Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show. We will see you later on for WrestleMania Night 1, but for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.